The St. Louis Black Repertory Company was founded in 1976 by Ron Himes and a group of students to fill a cultural void on a university campus. The goal was to heighten cultural, social, and educational awareness of the community. Over the past 15 years, the programs have propelled the company from the university to a national arena. Here is the story of those first 15 years, the beginning.
Tonight is a very special night, and it's not just a special night because it's the last performance that we'll do at the theater. It's a special night because there are a lot of special people here tonight. A lot of special people who have made the Black Repertory Company what it is. 15 years ago, when we started the Black Repertory Company, there is still just one person around from the original group of students who were at Washington University who sat down and had this idea, and that's Marsha Khan sitting in the back.
This is a story that Ron never tells, but I'm going to tell it because it's important, I think, because it was the first time that I know of that Ron was on stage. I was a senior at WashU, and I had an assignment to direct one scene, and I chose Ceremonies in Dark Old Men, and I edited together one scene from Ceremonies in Dark, or one, I'm sorry, not one scene, but one act from Ceremonies in Dark Old Men. And I chose to use my friends as actors because, number one, it was a black play. There were only a few other black people in the theater department at the time who I, probably was not very close to at that time. So I decided all my friends were actors, bad actors, some of them, but I chose them to be the characters in Ceremonies in Dark Old Men. And Ron's role was a character named Blue. And he was excellent in that. And that was the first time that he was on stage. And after that, Muthal Naidu, who at that time was the black drama professor on the faculty at WashU, was very impressed with Ron and wanted him to audition for this play that her one play of the year that was going to be on the main stage of Addison Theater at WashU. And we dared Ron to audition for it. And he took us up on the dare and he got the part. And as they say, the rest is history.
I was a student in the business school at Washington University College, and had lots of friends, and had friends in the theater department as well. A lot of black theater students were not being cast in productions at the university. I guess by not being in the theater department, it was a lot easier for me to instigate. And part of what I used to always tell them was that if we paid tuition at the university, then the university had to give us access to the facilities on campus. And if the theater department was not going to cast them in roles, then they should produce their own work. And so we sat down and began talking about forming a company that would do just that. And so together came a group of students who had interest in theater, acting, dance, music. There were visual artists, there were musicians, there were writers. And we began to, as a collective, put together productions. In the early days, that company was called the Phoenix Theater Troupe. And that name was based on the mythical bird that rises from its own ashes. But in the Egyptian lore, it actually, the phoenix rises from the waters that covered the earth. And so that was where the name of the company came from. And I think at one point I also remember telling them that, if we called ourselves the Phoenix Theater Troupe, people would think we were from out of town and they'd be more likely to come see us. They wouldn't think we were just some little local group. And so we operated under that name for a couple of years, and within a couple of years, the core of that group had either graduated, transferred, lost interest in the project as a whole, and had moved on. And at a time when we began to start pursuing incorporating the organization, at that time I think that Geraldine Cole and myself were doing a lot of the work, a lot of the paperwork, trying to get the organization incorporated. And one of the first obstacles that we ran into is that there was already some organization registered with the state that was called the Phoenix something. And so we couldn't incorporate under the name of the Phoenix Theater Troupe. And so after more time passed, eventually we wound up incorporating the company as the St. Louis Black Repertory Company. One evening, there was a couple from the Greeley Community Center. They were actually the directors of the Greeley Community Center, which was located at 23rd and St. Louis Avenue, Mr. and Mrs. Claude Gwynn. And after seeing a performance one night, they waited. We met each other, and they told me that they had a church connected with the community center that was empty, it was vacant, and asked if we'd be interested in moving into the facility and using it as a performance space. Was very excited about the possibility. Of course, we knew that we wouldn't be able to pay to be in the facility, and they said that was no problem, that we could trade off teaching classes to the children in the community for use in the space. And so I rushed down the very next week, looked at the space, and said, this is fabulous, this will work. It was an old Presbyterian church, I believe, built in 1929. The presbytery had since left the neighborhood, and so the church was vacant. I said, yes, we'll take the space. I think that Mr. Gwynn and I were standing on the corner looking at the front of the building one day, and I looked up at the street sign and saw 23rd and St. Louis Avenue and said, yeah, we'll call this the 23rd Street Theater, and it'll be the Miracle down here on 23rd Street. And so we moved into the facility in the fall of 1980, began trying to clean it up and set it up as a performance space. And in February of 1981, we opened the first production at the 23rd Street Theater. And it was a production called The Black Musical Review. As the seasons began to grow in the number of weeks of productions and the number of performances produced each season, we had to begin to develop a pool of actors and designers and directors. And so we began to hold open auditions. And I can remember back in the early days, we would audition 150 people. Everybody would come to the audition. And we'd see all kinds of things for audition music. Well, very interesting. But it was open. And what we could see is that there were very talented people with a lot of interest in performing, but with no outlets, no opportunities to perform, and certainly no place to go get training. And so we began to try to fill that void. And then people began to join the company, and people like Vivian Watt and Linda Kennedy, Drummond Crenshaw, Jerome Davis, in those early days. Who else? Rochelle Patterson, Autry Jackson. And those were that was sort of the core. And there were others. And I hope that no one holds it against me for not saying the name, but you know who you are.
I first came to the St. Louis Black Repertory Company as an audience member in 1980. I was working with a young local designer, Daryl Harris, performing with him, and he was in some of the productions, and so we all came down to see him, and I was hooked right away. I don't think I missed anything that first year. There was the musical review, the Mighty Gents, Rashomon, Job. It was all just absolutely excellent. And I wanted to be a member, but didn't have enough courage at the time to audition. In 1982, we formed the first company, and there were about a dozen of us in that company. And we were all excited because not only were we able to do our craft, but we were getting paid for it too. So it was really, it was an incentive to keep developing and to keep growing. Along with growing as a company, we grew as a family. For me, it was like college years. A lot of the people that I was working with had gone to school and were majoring in theater, but I didn't have that luxury. So for me, this was sort of my college years and my sorority and a lot of that college campus feel. It's been great seeing the audiences grow. People continue to come out, so much so that we even had to figure out how to readjust the seating in the theater because there began to be such a big demand for the production.
Swinging rhythm that makes life seem dearer under the deep.
The St. Louis Black Repertory Company developed its educational component many years ago, and I really couldn't probably tell you exactly when, but it has been a tremendous benefit and an enriching experience for thousands of students in the St. Louis Public Schools and hundreds of teachers. And it has done that in many different ways. It has done it, first of all, through inviting students to the theater through its matinee performances, but it also developed its touring show component, which brought the learning experience to the students. And that's been a very enriching experience, not only for thousands of students, but also the teachers. They make sure that they make their productions significant, not only in the topics that they present to the students, but they're very attentive to making them age appropriate. So the teacher has an opportunity to select from an array of productions so that they bring to the students something that is valuable and entertaining to the students. The productions not only stimulate the imagination of the students, but it inspires them to further their involvement in some venues that are offered through theater, and that's writing and oral and written communication skills. It inspires them to be creative in their own writing experiences, and it stimulates them to realize that there are a lot of different venues available for them to be creative. When they get a chance to see mirror model images like themselves performing on a lot of very significant topics, or just something very fun-filled, they begin to realize that this is yet an opportunity that they might be able to plug in not only now as a young person, but later on as a professional endeavor or a means of releasing their own creative energies and developing their own creative energies.
I'm Daryl Rutland, better known as Joe Rutland around the Black Rep. And I wanted to be an actor and didn't have the foggiest idea how to do it, how to go about it. And I guess it was like May, and I was told by someone, sometime, somewhere, to go see a play on 23rd Street and St. Louis Avenue. And I said, what's on 23rd and St. Louis Avenue? And they said, the St. Louis Black Rep. And I said, oh. So I went down one evening, and I was totally wiped out. I was impressed. It was Tambourines to Glory, and Linda Kennedy was playing the lead role in it. And she was wonderful, the show was wonderful, and I was just like swept away. So I said, wow, I wonder, can I do something like that? I'd like to learn how to do it. So I guess it was sometime that next week, during business hours, I went over and knocked on the side door of the building. I said, is there anyone in here who can teach me how to be an actor? And I was welcomed in and subsequently enrolled in the adult acting class that they were offering that summer. And the instructor, as I recall, was Deborah Wicks. And between Deborah Wicks' instructions and Ron's instruction in the next phase of that class, I think that autumn, I started being cast in main stage shows in the spring of 1983. The first one was The River Niger, and I was knocked out, got a great kick out of it, and was hooked and never wanted it to end. Well, it finally did end, and we went on to other productions and stuff, but that's how it started for me. And probably, for me, one of the most memorable people that I met early on in my association with the Black Rep was Kenneth Bailey. And he's no longer with us, and I miss him terribly, still do. And I can't do a play, or I can't be around the officers, or can't be around the other people at the Black Rep without thinking about Kenny, so there that is. And this is my St. Louis Black Rep jacket. And I guess Rhonda and the St. Louis Black Rep sold these jackets years ago. And I've kept mine and I cherish it, and I wear it all the time to this day. In fact, I was wearing it today when I showed up. And I love this jacket, and I want people to see me wearing it and to know where I'm coming from when I have it on. So there that is. I have to say thanks to Ron Himes and the staff at the St. Louis Black Rep, because I can't think of any other place in this country I could have gotten the extensive training and on-the-job experience that I've gotten at the St. Louis Black Rep. Having done so many productions over the years, I just don't think it would have been possible anyplace else, and to be able to be cast and allowed to develop like I have. So, gotta say thanks, and I gotta count my blessings, and that's one of them, my association with the St. Louis Black Rep.
Founded in 1976 by producing director Ron Himes, the St. Louis Black Repertory Company, commonly known as the Black Rep, is the largest African American performing arts organization in Missouri. On its main stage, the Black Rep produces works by both established and emerging African American and Third World playwrights. Its mission is to provide platforms for theater, dance, and other creative expressions from the African American perspective, which heighten the social and cultural awareness of its audiences. In addition to its 6 main stage productions each season, the St. Louis Black Repertory Company offers an award-winning outreach program that includes student matinees of main stage productions, touring shows and residencies, workshops in drama and movement for children, teens, and adults, and a professional intern program. The company's touring component performs more than 150 performances a year to schools, community centers, corporations, and other organizations in the St. Louis area and throughout the Midwest region. Through its educational programs and main stage productions, the Black Rep reaches an audience exceeding 50,000 people annually.
We are trying as much as we can to document this evening and this passing over. And Benita Carnook will be doing some interviews with you all about your impressions of the 10 years that we spent here, about how you feel about us leaving and how you felt coming here over the past few years. So we hope that you'll stay, wait on the actors to come out after they change and chat with us and them and Ms. Carnook a little bit.
You know, I'm very excited about the move. I'm very touched about a lot of things that have happened here over the past 10 years. Productions I can remember back on, actors who I've watched grow, young people who I've seen come up through the theater. And so that's sort of touching and I guess a bit nostalgic. But I think that more than anything, I'm excited and anxious to make the move.
Did you ever think that what you and Marcia Khan created and others, did you ever think it would grow to be what it is today, that you'd be making a transition, a milestone like this would be occurring?
I mean, that was our vision. I mean, the reason that the theater is called the Black Repertory Company and not the Black Repertory Theater is because that we thought it would be a cultural institution that would house a wide variety of artists, not just a theater, but a dance company, a film series, music series. We've had all of that during the past 15 years. And I think that this next transition is just another part of the original dream.
You know, as we talk about the original dream, here is one of the other dreamers. Your thoughts on this move, this transition?
Well, it's monumental. I really feel fortunate and blessed to have been at the beginning when we first were talking about it and doing little student productions on campus. You know, I mean, real tight group of people that made a decision, you know, at that time to do something productive, to make an opportunity for ourselves, and it's grown to the St. Louis Black Repertory Company, 15 years.
I was here in the first production, and I'm here in the last production. I think it's an honor from my heart to have been here that long and to work in as many capacities as I have worked in. I'm crying, I'm seeing memories, I'm seeing people snowbound, people falling off, people painting, people working, people saying Miss Vivian, people saying Ron this, Ron. I see it all, Nita, I see it.
Any memories or nostalgia on your part, having been involved in different ways over the past 10 years or so?
Well, having directed Blood Knot here, I felt very strongly about the place, and so it'll be fun to see what it's like at a better facility, shall we say.
Yeah. This organization is making a major move, and this is a point of transition for the St. Louis Black Repertory Company. And given your involvement in the theater, are your thoughts about this transition and this milestone in the history of the organization?
Well, I just can only assume that it's deserved, you know, if they've done this well and have been able to build and grow. I mean, it's at a certain moment you outgrow a space you happen to be in and you have to go to the next space. And I have to assume that they have outgrown this space.
Absolutely.
Principally, I mean, you know, it's this space, by the way, is a nice space. I like it. Very intimate. However, as you are sort of making progress, you got to move on to the next level. There we know.
And of course, given your work as a playwright, how important is it for the African American community to come out and support?
Vitally important that there is a legitimate theater space inside the community. I mean, we don't have very many theaters nationally to perform works in. What has happened in the last 10 years has been a development of new spaces for black playwrights to show their work in a national way. Before that, it was only New York and Chicago. Now you can go to New York, Chicago, Cincinnati, San Francisco, Atlanta,
and St. Louis.
And St. Louis, but I mean there are about 20 places one can go. It's not a lot, but that's more than it had been. So that's very important that there's a space as a cultural mooring, you might say, you know, for the community.
Thank you. That's all I need. As a veteran in the industry, I thought certainly we should have your perspective.
Thank you.
I grew up down in this area, so 23rd Street is kind of special to me in many, many ways.
Ron Himes has planted a lot of seeds, and we've seen them blossom along the way. I can say that he had an instrumental part in sparking the desire to become an actress, my desire of becoming an actress. I appeared in our first children's production, Godspell, when I was 16 years old. And I went on to be pre-med in school, but the bug just kept biting me until I changed and came back to the Black Rep after college and pursued an acting career. So I think that he's a nurturer in a sense. And a lot of good things have come from the theater, and I do wish it well in its new move into the new space.
Amir, you've been involved with the theater for a long time. I saw you in many productions as a very young man, as a child. Are there any emotions that you're feeling right now, given the transition from this space to the new theater?
Well, I'm happy for the Black Rep. I mean, I'm the kind of person, I don't feel the emotions right then. But later, maybe when I get home, I'll feel it. And I'm happy, though. I mean, it's not sad or anything. It shows that hard work pays off, you know, and it's always better things to look forward to.
How long have you been involved?
10 years.
10 years. So you've seen the good, the bad, the ugly, and the sweet.
And the sweet. I saw it all. And a lot of faces come out, a lot of make it. So all you can do is just keep faith. And I mean, look what's happening here.
Yeah.
You know?
Great. Thanks, Amir.
All right.
Is this your first visit?
Oh, heavens, no. We are
so that means
yes.
that you have some
And I brought students here. I've done workshops here in drama.
So what does it mean to you to see this?
It means a great deal to me as a person to see this, because they have a high grade of theater. I've been able to introduce students who've never been to the theater at all to this and come, and they'll come with different attitudes and then go and see. And I've seen productions in New York and seen productions here, and in many times the Black Rep was better than the New York production.
And the move, do you think that will perhaps enhance what we see out of the company?
I think it will allow a wider range of people to come, because some people have stereotypic ideas about this area, and they feel differently about it. That's all, because the productions have been first rate, the lighting, the sets, all of that.
I came early today and I walked around backstage into the dressing rooms. I've been in each dressing room one time or another, and I remembered my moments in the dressing rooms. I have a special spot where I stand by the coffee machine, and I stood there for a couple of minutes, and I'll never do that again. I'll never park my car and run in here freezing, and I'll never open up the closet door where we keep the coffee and have mice run out all over me. But honestly, there are ghosts in every theater, and during the speeches tonight, I watched the ceilings, and the ghosts were echoing, and there are so many people who have said so many things here, and this is it's a marvelous way to end the decade.
Right. We don't think that it is the building that makes what we do special. We think that it is you and the people who are on the stage. And though the stage will be different and the building will be different, it will be us coming together to make something special happen on Grand that has happened here on 23rd Street for the past 10 years. I want to thank you very, very much for the support you've given us here, and I want to let you know that we need it more when we move to Grand. Thank you all very much.